So I was trying to think today of how could I tell this story maybe in a new way, and I was reminded of something really embarrassing that happened to me. So if I tell you an embarrassing story, do you promise, one, not to laugh at me when I tell it, and two, you're not allowed to tell anyone else? So it stays in this room. Now, I'm not sure my clicker's going to work. Let me try it one more time. Donna, I might have to rely on you to move it on for me. An embarrassing story. So this embarrassing story begins with me on a bicycle. So this is me on the screen. And I was cycling back to my house, and I was cycling through Ormeau Park. Who's been to Ormeau Park? Yeah, I love Ormeau Park. And Ormeau Park was great because it was a wee shortcut for me. So I could cycle through the park and get home quickly. But on this day, I was a bit later than usual, so it was getting dark. And when I got to the gate that I normally go through, can you guess what happened? What happens to Ormeau Park at night time? Yeah. It was closed. Not only was it closed, there was one of these on it, a lock. So I thought, oh no, what am I going to do now? So I decided, well, first of all, I had a look what I had to navigate. It was one of these. It was a fence, but not an ordinary fence. What do you notice at the top of that fence? Big spikes, okay? This story comes with a health warning, boys and girls. You're not to try this at home. What I decided to do was, I thought, now my wife just knows how foolish this is because I am not athletic. But I decided I could navigate that fence. So I lifted my bike and I threw it over the fence. And I threw it onto the part on the Ormeau Road, you know, just at the top of Ardinley Avenue, the really busy stretch of road. So it was rush hour. I want you to remember that. It was rush hour and the cars were stopping on the road. So I put my bike over, and then I start to climb up onto the fence. And I jumped over the fence, but I didn't make it to the ground on the other side. Do you know what had happened to me? This is so lucky I didn't have a more serious injury. The spike of the fence went into my trousers and hooked onto the top of my trousers, so I was dangling 6 inches off the ground. Now, boys and girls, I want to remind you this was rush hour, okay? So I'm on the Ormeau Road hanging on the fence while cars are driving past really slowly and looking out the window. Is that guy hanging on a fence? Now, I was waiting for my good Samaritan to come, okay? Because I was stuck. I thought it was funny at first. Then I thought, actually, how am I going to get down from here? Do I phone my wife and ask her to come and get me? What am I going to do? So along came a couple walking a dog, and I thought, oh, they'll help. Do you know what? They did that Northern Irish thing. They very politely said, hello, and walked on, and I said, hello back. And then I thought, one of these people in the car, surely they'll do something to help me. Somebody might stop. Nobody did. They all just laughed. Eventually, I had to rescue myself. There was no good Samaritan. And I was using my Boy Scout training. I used my initiative. I got my rucksack off, and I used it to kind of pulley me up, wedge me up, and I jumped off. But the moral of this story is, do not try to climb a spiky fence, okay? It's not a good idea. In the story we've just heard, something similar happens to a man going along a road. He gets in trouble, and he finds himself robbed, and he's hurt on the side of the road. And there are two people come along the story who should have helped. There were people like me, ministers, priests. So Paddy and I walk along, and I just walk on by and say hello. Then Paddy comes, and he goes the other side of the street and walks on by as well. But then an unexpected person comes. Somebody who was meant to be this man's enemy, but he stops and helps him. And at the end of that story, Jesus says to all of the people listening, now you go and do likewise. Do you know what that means? That means if you go and see something wrong or somebody in trouble or somebody's hurt, you go and help them just like that Samaritan helped somebody who was meant to be his enemy. Now, I got thinking about this, go and do likewise. And I thought of some people in the world who've gone to help others. And I've got 4 people here on the screen. And I'm imagining that some of you don't know who these people are. So we might need the grown-ups in the room to help us, okay? But I wonder, boys and girls, first of all, do you know this first man here? The man with the white hair. I'm hoping you know who he is, because you might have seen him on TV talking about animals or the natural world. Who's that? Yeah? David Attenborough. Absolutely right. And David Attenborough's on the screen because David Attenborough's done a lot to help creation, to help the natural world and to make us think about doing what's right in nature, protecting our planet. What about this next person? She's one of my heroes. She was in the news a lot a few years ago, but maybe you haven't heard of her. I'm sure some of the congregation have. Who can shout out for me? Who's this? Anybody know? This is Malala. Yes, Malala Yousafzai. Now, she's a really special person because she lived in a place where girls were not allowed to go to school, and she stood up for the rights of girls to go to school, and she now is an ambassador. That means somebody who speaks out for other people so that everybody is able to go to school and get an education. This next man is another one of my heroes, but you bet you, boys and girls, you don't know who this is. Do any of the grown-ups know who this is? There's a clue. There's a flag or a symbol behind his head of the United Nations. He was Ban Ki-moon. Yes, Ban Ki-moon. He was the General Secretary of the United Nations, an organization that brings justice and helps people all across the world, and he did lots of amazing things in that role. And the final person is a politician, somebody who was prime minister of a country very far away. I know one of our members here, a couple of our members have been there recently. So Raymond, do you know who this is? That's exactly right. Jacinda Ardern. You're almost right. You're thinking of Birdie. I don't think she's related to Birdie. This is Jacinda Ardern. And she was a prime minister in New Zealand who fought a lot for justice in creation and for people who were poor and on the edge of things. Now, why have I picked 4 people that you probably won't know? That wasn't a great way to do a kids' talk, was it? Why have I picked these 4 people? Can anybody guess? There's a very particular reason why on Thinking Day and Founders Day, I've picked these 4 people. Ava, say it louder for me. Because they're my heroes. Is that what you said? Yeah, they are some of my heroes. But I also have other heroes too that you might have known. Yeah? Because it's good to learn from them. Absolutely it is. But why on Thinking Day and Founders Day, do you think? No, because once upon a time, they were all just like you. All of the people on the screen were either in Scouts or Guides. And I thought, what a wonderful thing to think that when you grow up, you could do amazing things like David Attenborough or Jacinda Ardern. Lots of amazing things. But maybe you're thinking, like some of the grown-ups like myself, I'm too small to make a difference in the world. Do you ever feel that way? Do you ever feel, I'm so small, people don't pay attention to me, they just ignore me? Well, Jesus says to us we're to go and do likewise. We might say back to him, Jesus, we're too small to do anything in the world. Well, somebody once said these words on the screen here that Donald just put up for us to me. There's more in you than you think. Sometimes we think we're very small. But when we read stories in the Bible, we realize God used small people all the time to do really big things. God used unexpected people to do surprising things. And as I was thinking about this, here's somebody that hopefully you will know. Who knows who this person is? Some more hands going. This is great. It's brilliant. Just shout it out for me. Who is it? Matilda. And we actually happened to listen to the Matilda musical again in the car this week. And one of our favorite songs, come on, Naughty. Sometimes you have to be a little bit naughty. Do you know that one? And I was thinking of the words in this song, and it reminded me of Matilda felt small sometimes, but she reminds us that small people can do big things. Here's what she sings. Because if you're little, you can do a lot. You mustn't let a little thing like little stop you. If you sit around and let them get on top, you won't change a thing. She goes on. Just because you find that life's not fair, it doesn't matter that it doesn't mean you just to grin and bear it. If you always take it on the chin and wear it, you might as well be saying you think that it's okay. And here's the bit I want you to remember. But that's not right. And if it's not right, you've got to put it right. I almost burst into song there, but I resisted. Okay? What is she saying there? She's saying sometimes we see things that aren't fair. and we can just let them be not fair and not do anything. But Matilda says, even if you're small, if it's not right, you have to put it right. And that's what Jesus says in that story when he says to us, we are to go and do likewise. And that's a challenge for the smallest of us here and also for the biggest. We have to go today from this place. We often say in this church, church is not the place you come to, church is the place you go from. We go today from this place into the world to see what's wrong and to do our job in putting it right. But I recognize that there are big problems in the world, and we are small, and we are on our own. And that's why it's important to do it together. So if you put up the next slide for me, Donna, you'll see here I've got chains all over the place. Maybe you noticed in our first song, God of Justice, it was a chain being broken, because sometimes when we think about putting things right, we're breaking the chains that imprison people. Today we're going to build a different chain together. And in your seat with your leaders, can I borrow one of these? Or, well, you still have enough, yeah? If I take one of these, now these are from my childhood because at Christmas we used to make these and put them around the house. Make a paper chain. So you lick one end of it, okay? There's an end that you lick. And I want you to take one of these, and your leader is going to make a hoop. And then you are going to put your hoop into the next person so that we make a chain. And we're going to do this during the singing of our next song. And this is an opportunity for you, boys and girls, and older people if you have one, to make a little promise today. That you're going to go from here and not be the same, but you're going to look out for things that aren't right or aren't fair. And you're going to do your little part to make it fair and make it right. Is that okay? Now, grown-ups, you also have an opportunity to do something to contribute to fairness in the world, because during the singing of our next song, we're also going to have our collection, and that money will go to good causes connected to our uniformed organizations. So that's your little opportunity to make your promise to be workers of justice in the world as well. Okay, boys and girls? Now, let's see if you can multitask and sing while you're doing that. We're going to stand and sing together, I've Got Peace Like a River. And our collection will be received then as well.